Hello, U.S. history students. So, the last lesson for this short week with Thanksgiving deals with the Monroe Doctrine. Okay. Now, Monroe is the fifth president. Jefferson was the third, Madison was the fourth, and Monroe is the fifth. He is the last of what we call the Virginia dynasty. Okay. Because actually, four out of the first five presidents were from Virginia. Okay, John Adams was the lone man out. He was second president. He's from Massachusetts. All right, so Monroe is the last of what we call the Virginia dynasty because he's fifth president, and we had four out of the first five presidents were from Virginia. Now, where we left off with Madison in the War of 1812, we win the War of 1812, and we are beginning to exert our desire to be a world power. Okay, we defeated Britain. Now, it was a messy war. It didn't look like we were going to be able to do that, but Jackson and the Battle of New Orleans defeat Britain and they send them home. Okay, so we are beginning to show that we can take care of ourselves. And that is going to lead us during the fifth presidency of Monroe to something known as the Monroe Doctrine. Now, there is a worksheet that accompanies this presentation, so be sure you are filling it in as we go through these notes today, okay? Now, here's what's happening in the world. We win the War of 1812, 1814, 1815. Okay, Britain has defeated Napoleon. Napoleon goes into exile. He comes out of exile, and he is defeated again in 1815 by Spain and Portugal. Okay, so Spain and Portugal have defeated Napoleon in 1815. He's not a threat. Remember, he was trying to create an empire in Europe. He's been defeated. He's not a threat anymore. But Spain and Portugal have decided that they want to reclaim their former colonies in Latin America. And it's not just Spain and Portugal, there are other European powers that want to reclaim their former colonies in Latin America. Well, this concerns us because Latin America is our neighbor to the south. Okay, so this is kind of concerning to us. At the same time, Russia is pushing south through Alaska, okay, because Alaska is right across from Russia. The Russians are pushing south through Alaska into what is today considered California. So we are very, very concerned that these European powers are kind of surrounding us from all sides. You've got Russia coming down south through Alaska into California, and you've got these other European powers in South America, Latin America, beginning to push north. And we decide we've got to do something, okay? We want to prevent them from pushing. We want to prevent Spain and Portugal from pushing up from the south, and we want to prevent Russia from pushing from the northwest. Okay, so we know we have to do something. We know we have to make a statement, and that statement is going to be issued by President James Monroe, and is going to be called the Monroe Doctrine. Okay, in 1823, President Monroe warns all outside powers not to interfere with the affairs of the Western Hemisphere. This statement becomes known as the Monroe Doctrine. Okay, and we are actually going to refer to this policy, even though it's from 1823. When we get into the late 1800s and the early 20th century, we're going to come back to the Monroe Doctrine, and it's going to guide a lot of our foreign policies because we are telling outside powers the Western Hemisphere is off to colonization. You guys cannot come over here. Okay. Now, it's called the Monroe Doctrine, but it's actually kind of developed by John Quincy Adams. Okay. John Quincy Adams, the son of John Adams, he's the one that kind of develops it. People ask, where is the Monroe Doctrine? Can you see the Monroe Doctrine? Is it like the Constitution or the Declaration of Independence? Can you go to the National Archives and see it on display? No, you cannot. Okay. It was a statement. It was part of a speech that Monroe gave to Congress, but there is no actual document that is the Monroe Doctrine. Okay, so we have it written down. We know what was said, but it's not like the Declaration or Constitution where you can go see it on display. All right. Now, what does this doctrine actually say? Okay, now you need to remember it's 1823, and what we are saying is we are trying to prevent Europe from colonizing the Western Hemisphere. Okay. And what we're going to do with this little chart, and this is what you're going to fill in, I'm going to give you 4 quotes from the statement. We are going to summarize what those quotes mean, and then we're going to come up with a little traffic sign to help you remember what the parts stand for. Okay. In fact, the traffic sign is going to be in the small box on the chart. So here's where the statement begins. The American continent should not be considered for future colonization by any European powers. A very, very direct statement. The American continents, North America and South America, should not be considered for future colonization by any European powers. What is Monroe saying here? Okay. This picture pretty much sums it up. Okay. What is that a universal symbol of, that raised hand like that? Monroe is saying, stop, stay out. You guys, Europe, are not allowed in the Americas. When we say we are not open to colonization, that's what we mean. Stop, stay out. You are not allowed. And of course, what is the best sign for this? The stop sign. Okay, because that's what Monroe is saying, is stop, stay out. You guys are not allowed. He continues. Nations in the Western Hemisphere were inherently different from those of Europe, republics by nature rather than monarchies. Okay? How are the nations of the Western Hemisphere different from Europe? We're democracies. We're republics. We rely on the people. Europe has a bunch of monarchs, okay? A bunch of kings, central leaders. We're different. And you guys, Europe, don't understand us because of that. So what the second part is saying, okay, we're drawing a line here. We're on this side. You guys are on that side, and we're different, all right? We've split away. We don't have a monarch anymore. In fact, it's like we're asking, why would you want to come over here anyway? You don't understand us, okay? You guys stay over there in Europe with your monarchs, and we in our republics will be over here in the Americas. We're different. We've split away, okay? And the sign that we're going to use for this is a diverging road, okay? Everybody's going one way, and then all of a sudden there's 2 paths that you can take, okay? That's what our revolution was all about. We took a different path. We didn't want to be controlled by a monarch anymore, so we fight for our independence. We fight for our freedom, all right? And we've gone off this way, and you guys are still going this way with the monarchs, all right? So we're different. We split away. The third part that Monroe mentions, the U.S. would regard as a threat to its own peace and safety any attempt by European powers to impose their system on any independent state in the Western Hemisphere. The U.S. would regard as a threat to its own peace and safety any attempt by European powers to impose their system on any independent state in the Western Hemisphere. What is Monroe saying here? Well, what he means is use caution. If you mess over here, we are going to respond. Doesn't matter if you're dealing with us directly. If you're coming over here and you're going into Latin America and you're going into South America and you're trying to reclaim those former colonies that have nothing to do with us, we're still going to assume that you're threatening us as well. And we are going to respond. So the best sign for this, because we're warning Europe to use caution, is a caution sign. All right? Be aware that if you come over here, we're going to respond, even if it doesn't involve us directly. And why would you want to come over here? Because we're different. Okay? We've chosen a different path. All of us, the Americans, have chosen a different path. Now, what's interesting about this is Monroe makes no mention of how we're going to respond. And we talked about this. We are still building up our Army and our Navy. We are dealing with some very secure European powers. So if they come over here and mess with us, to be honest with you, I'm not sure how we're going to respond. But we're threatening to respond if they do, okay? And to be honest with you, I think we're hoping that the threat is going to be enough to keep them away, okay? Don't forget the Battle of New Orleans now. We killed 2,036 of the British and we only lost 71. Okay, so we can fight. Not sure how we're going to do it, but we can fight. So this is kind of a threat. To be honest, this could put Europe on edge here. What are you saying you're going to respond if we mess over there, okay? We know you guys don't have an army and a navy. You know, you're not scaring us. So Monroe closes with a reassurance. The U.S. would not interfere in European affairs. Okay? Basically, what we're saying is we're going to stay over here in our hemisphere. You guys stay over there in your hemisphere. We're not going to mess with you, so you don't mess with us. Okay? We will not mess with you, Europe, so you don't mess with us. All right? And that's kind of the conciliatory nature that we're trying to end this document on. Okay, we've been kind of tough here at the beginning. Stop, stay out. You're not allowed. We're different. Why would you want to come over here anyway? You guys are monarchies. We're republics. If you come over here, even if you don't challenge us directly, we're going to assume that you're threatening us and we will respond. But we're not going to mess with you, so you don't mess with us. Okay, so we're trying to end things kind of calmly and peacefully. And the sign is the yield sign. Okay, hold up, wait a second. All right, don't get bent out of shape. We're not going to mess with you, so you guys don't mess with us. Okay. And anytime in the future Europe tries to do something like this, we're going to throw the Monroe Doctrine up in their face. Okay, we're going to use it to justify our war with Spain in the late 1800s, early 1900s. Okay, we're going to use this to justify some of our actions in Latin America. And what's interesting about this, okay, and what I want to point out is, are we consulting any of the other Latin American countries? Are we consulting any South American countries when we make this statement? No, we are not. Okay. We just assume those Latin American countries and those South American countries want us to help. Also, notice we don't want Europe coming over here and colonizing the Western Hemisphere. It does not say anything about us not colonizing the Western Hemisphere. In fact, what we would argue is if we need to get involved in Latin America or South America to help them out, in fact, that's what we're arguing here in this statement, we will. Okay. So, Europe, you guys stay out. But if we need to get involved, we will. Okay. That's kind of what we're saying here. So it's a little two-sided, all right? And we're going to talk about this more when we get to imperialism in the 20th century. America prides itself on not being an imperialistic country. Like, we have never had an empire, all right? And we maintain we've never wanted an empire. But we're going to make some pretty imperialistic statements, all right? And this is one of them. All right, we don't come out directly and say it, but the idea, the meaning behind it is, Europe, you guys stay out. We're here in the Western Hemisphere. And if these Latin American countries, these South American countries need help, we're going to step in. Did we ask them if they want that help? No. But we're assuming that they do. So that's the Monroe Doctrine. Like I said, we're going to apply it later on down the road when we deal with some more issues, okay, dealing with foreign countries coming over the Western Hemisphere. But this is the situation we're going to leave things in right now, is we're seeing ourselves as the dominant power in the Western Hemisphere, and you guys need to stay out. We're in charge, okay? And there's where we're going to pick up when we come back after Thanksgiving. Okay, we're going to focus on some more internal issues when we come back after Thanksgiving with the presidency of Andrew Jackson.